Hey,
I actually like this music, and
let's go.
it makes you feel like I'm at the dentist office waiting to get my teeth cleaned.
Absolutely. Hey, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am your brother, OJ Kenyatte Johnson, and this is the Black Moor, where our mission is to educate, motivate, and uplift Black people worldwide and everyone who loves us, regardless of race, religion, or nationality. And today I've got my good friend Corey Harris on the line here from Trap Talks. We're going to do kind of a collab here, but at Trap Talks, this is where the intersection of culture meets tech, and we're doing a little series here on African history, Egyptian history, kind of a little bit about that. But Corey, tell people about what you're up to, what you got going on, my brother.
Yeah. So Corey State Trapping, again, Trap Talks where I like to discuss the intersection of culture and tech and, history. African history is just one of my favorite subjects, right? And so for me, every time we link up and talk and collab, it's all about taking that history of our people, but then actually making it relevant to how we can use it and leverage it today in this new technology driven world, right? So, culture's always been ubiquitous, but now tech is controlling our culture, right? So I always like to go back into the history books or the history tablets and figure out
Hmm.
what relevant information as a people can we use today. So yeah. So it's always fun linking up. The people are really loving the content and yeah. So whenever you're ready.
Hey, I love it, man. I love it. So today, we're going to talk a little bit about Egyptian history. I was telling Corey that we can go so deep into this that we'll probably have to do the multiple series or what have you. But the way I feel about it is the first step. If you're ever going to talk about Egyptian history or Kemetic history, there's a couple of guidelines that we need to follow first. And actually, this whole section is just going to be about 10 guidelines or 10, what I call 10 must know Egyptian facts and perspectives, right? When you're learning true Kemetic or Egyptian history. So these are things to keep in mind and kind of how to orientate where you're learning from and how to go, where to start, starting point, so to say.
Right,
Um,
right.
and then we'll just talk about the subjects in between and keep it low key and kind of, anything that pops up or spurs, we're just going to talk about it right off the top of the head, off the dome. Sound good?
Right. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Number one, I'm going to hit you with a quote by the great historian John Henrik Clark. If anybody's watching this, if you do not know who John Henrik Clark is, please go look this man up. Go buy any of his books, papers, what have you. This is one of our master teachers, our master historians. I will vouch. You can go to any of his books and get some true knowledge and history. Quote I want
He
to use from him
he
is,
he was Malcolm X's lead historian, wasn't a part of the Nation of Islam. So that should tell you his level of significance. If Malcolm X was listening to him, because I think at the time he may have been Christian. I think towards the end of his life he was more spiritual. So that just tells you the level of significance and
he
knowledge that he
broke up a
had. That
little
Malcolm
bit.
X. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that was the level that should tell you the level of
Yeah,
significance
I
and
heard you.
knowledge that
And
he had.
your screen froze for a second.
Okay. Yeah, that's weird.
It's all right. It looks like your internet might be a little freezing up, but you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
But yeah, Malcolm X studied the teachings of John Henrik Clark, read his books, also went to prison where you get a lot of this knowledge from. So the John Henrik Clark, basically just a quick quote, it just is that Egypt, which is a Nile Valley civilization, was old before Europe was born. Okay. That's the first concept I want people to kind of understand and think about, right? That Egypt was already old. We have empires that you have glory periods and you have down periods. Egypt had already went up in glory period and down period like three significant times before Greece or Europe was even awake. But
Mm.
you never hear these type of concepts when you're looking at Egyptian history, TV shows, movies, documentaries, or what have you, right? The way they make you think about Egyptian history is that it's a European concept. Or we waited in darkness for Europeans to come in and to start this Egyptian high intellect and culture, or it came from somewhere from Asia. But they always take the blackness out of it. So that's the first concept we want to talk about is the fact that Europe was a baby. When Europe woke up and decided to join the rest of the world in civilization, Egypt, Africa, the rest of the world was already old. So these Egyptians, or excuse me, these Greeks, they came over and they learned and studied They were students. They were not conquerors, right? They came in as students. That's one of the first things that you have to first understand when you're talking about true Egyptian history. Let me see if I can give you this little, see if this thing pops up here for you guys here. So I put in here, Egypt was created by Europeans. That's the word Egyptian, right? Or Egypt. That's a European word. So Egypt was created by European, while Kemet was created by Black Africans over 1,000 years prior, right? These people, these actually Egyptians or Kemites, they never used the term Egypt. They didn't refer to the name, the land as Egypt. This is all something that comes from a European perspective. Now, what I want you to do, you got to trust me on this one now, Corey. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to think about what does an Egyptian look like, an ancient Egyptian, in your mind's eye, right? Think about all the movies you've seen with Egypt or the mummies or anything dealing. I want you to get a good visual on that. Okay, now open your eyes. All right. Go ahead, open your eyes now. You have that locked in your brain, right? What these people look like. Now, two things I want you to do. Keep that visual locked in your head. You're in a living room or somewhere right now, in a room right now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. I want you to look to your left at the wall on the left. Now I want you to look to your right. Look at the wall on the right. Now, when we're talking about true African history, true Kemetic and Egyptian history, the distance between the wall on your left and the wall on your right, when it comes to European influence on Egypt and Africa itself, only amounts to about this much. So look at it as a timeline from left to right, the entire length of your room, right? Everything else other than about this much is from an African perspective. Had nothing to do with Europeans, right? When most people think of Egyptians, let me ask you, did you think of, let me pop up some pictures here. Did you think of someone who looked like these folks here? We're going to pull up some. Because this is what most people think of when they think of Egyptian pharaohs, Egyptian history. Let's take a look here. How about this? This is from the Ten Commandments. That's Charlton Heston playing Moses, right? There's that Yul Brynner playing Ramses the second, right? Is my cursor popping up? Can you see that?
It's no, it's not popping up,
Oh, the
but
person. Okay, but you can see the picture. Okay.
yeah, yeah, I can see the picture. Yeah.
Let's look at what they try to portray as Cleopatra. We're going to talk about that in a minute as well. That's Elizabeth Taylor
Right.
with like braids and cornrows in her hair. Like, come on. This is most of the imagery that Hollywood tries to portray of what true Egyptians look like.
Look like, yeah.
But in reality, right, you're going to see that these are actual statues of what the actual Egyptians kind of look like. This is not, and we'll go back over these later. This woman on the right, Queen T, that's like the great grandmother of King Tut, great or great great grandmother of King Tut. This is a Black woman. The actual picture on the left is actually what King Tut, what the Egyptians themselves who knew King Tut and were there at the time, what they sculpted and the colors that they used to represent King Tut. But again, the problem is, first off, oh, how do I exit this? Here we go. First problem is that's not the imagery that you ever see in history or in class or in Hollywood. Let me ask you, when I had you close your eyes, what imagery did you think of when you think of ancient Egyptians?
So before I heard of Dr. Clark and went down the rabbit hole of like Black history, and I'm talking when I
Right.
was like a teenager. Well, actually not a teenager. This was like a young adult post, but I learned more about African history and Black history from, YouTube and finding his old videos where they were originally VHS turned to digital. But initially I thought they were more Eurocentric because I was looking at the modern day Egyptians now, right? I thought they were more of their complexion. But once I started to learn more about, even when you look at the origin of Adam and Eve and Garden of Eden, and then, just getting deeper down that rabbit hole, I was like, they were actually more akin to the modern day Sudanese people, right? So when I close my eyes now with all of this knowledge, I was like, no, they were more than likely the modern day Sudanese people. But growing up, if you would have asked me to close my eyes, I would have thought it was more of like a Eurocentric type of look, or the modern Arabs who kind of predominantly run North Africa or populate North Africa.
Right, right. Man, and tell you that it makes me so mad now because I can't even watch some of the great action flicks that I like the actual the movie The Mummy. The new versions that came out like in the 90s or 2000s with Brendan Fraser and all that, man. I like those movies as far as action, but I can't stand the way they just totally just butcher Egyptian true comedic like heroes, right?
Yeah,
They made Imhotep a villain in that movie.
which
And
is crazy.
they make him a pharaoh first off, which Imhotep was never a pharaoh. He was the world's first multi genius, which we're going to talk about that in another video.
Another
But he was the
video, yeah.
world's first multi genius. He was an architect. He was a physician. He was all that. But the last thing he was a villain. He was a fantastic guy. So hey, it's hard for me to watch these movies, man. It's hard for me to watch the Ten Commandments when I
Mhm,
see all these imagery like that as an adult. When I was a kid, I watched them all the time. But now
mhm.
I know my true history, and it makes it very, very, very tough to continue to just watch the plagiarism happen.
Right, and to make an analogy with you, it's like, I have a lot of medical professionals in my family, and one person in particular, they hate watching Grey's Anatomy because it doesn't
Mm,
that the way they talk about the way the medical professionals are acting in Grey's Anatomy, that's not how true and real medical people act, right? It's
right.
like, it's almost like they're making fun of the profession. Obviously, it's dramatized, but, so the way you feel, it reminds me of that. Like certain relatives, they're like, I'll say stuff like, yeah, I love watching Grey's Anatomy. That showed me how them real medical professionals are.
And they're like,
They, they're like, they look at me like I'm crazy, but I'll be tongue in cheek with them. So
right. Just entertainment, entertainment. That ain't the
yeah,
real
yeah,
deal,
yeah.
Corey. That's so true, man. Now that kind of brings me back there, brings me to the second kind of perspective, right? So the first thing they got to understand is that Egypt is super old, super, super old. We weren't waiting for Europeans to come educate us, teach us nothing. We were already had it mastered and everything before they even decided to wake up. The second thing is the entire, now this is just again my humble opinion, but the entire so-called study of Egyptology was an anti-black concept and creation, right? It is literally and figuratively the goal is to take the blackness out of Egypt. Right, there's an old joke that says, no, I don't remember the exact joke, but it refers to something like the only reason why the Egyptian pyramids at the Great Giza Plateau are still there is because they were too heavy to be stolen and shipped off to Europe. Right, so Egyptology, the whole goal is to take everything out of Africa, take it out. That's why you see so many African facts in Europe, in America, around the world. All this stuff was taken out. And then they want to replace it with this ideology that, oh no, black people couldn't have, we had no culture. We had no intellect. We had to wait for white people to come in and civilize us. None of that could be further from the truth. And it was deliberate, right? You don't see Chineseology, right? You don't have a Germanology, but you have an Egyptology, right? Not, and that's different than Egyptian studies or Egyptian history. They call it Egyptology, right? But this is all when these Europeans came in, wanted to come and take the culture, take the and kind of frame it. Because again, you can't support white supremacy, Jim Crow, and slavery and say that black people never created something when they literally created what gives you modern Western philosophy or spurred Greek philosophy and this high intellect. So you can't
Right.
play sides of the coin at the same time, so to say. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm glad you talked about why they did that, because I often like to, discover the action behind it, but then why did they make that action, right? And it's like you said, you if you wanna demonize and subjugate a set of people, you first have to
Hmm.
make them sub or below human. And I was
Hmm.
actually reading the Bible verse this morning, in Colossians, or maybe I'm screwing the word up, and it talked about, be a good slave to your master. And it just hit me like, wow, this was the verse that they let their slaves, African slaves in America read. Right. So, yeah.
Corey, don't yeah. Boy, you get me started with that one because that's one that they chose to keep in when
Yeah.
there's other patches that they chose not to take out. I mean, to take
Yeah.
out, right? That
Yeah.
they didn't want the
Yeah.
enslaved to read those other passages, man. But they
Right.
wanted
And I'm,
to
and I'm,
be
and
kind to
I'm
the
Christian
enslaved owner.
and I'm Christian.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah. So I don't want to, that could be another subject, another episode. But yeah.
That
Yeah.
was actually called the slave Bible. So they didn't let the slaves read the whole Bible. They put a whole separate Bible together with phrases like that that they left in there. Love
Yeah.
your master, obey your master, honorably, things like that.
Later.
Teaching the other stuff about revolution or Moses, like, let my people go. I'm
Yeah.
leaving and all.
Yeah.
No, they didn't read that. Good knowledge though.
Yeah.
So when we talk about, man, the imagery, right, and how they want to take everything out of Africa, here's my thing though. When these Egyptologists or whatever, when you're not even believing your own eyes, to me, this is what drives me crazy. Because let's just take a look at some other photos here real quick. Let's look at some of these paintings that are on the walls. Right, these are in tombs that are over 5,000 years old. These are clearly brown skinned, melanated people. Right. This is, again, at this time when this was painted, there was no European high culture civilization. The Greeks were not, there was no Greek civilization at the time. Right. Look at this photo here. Right. Clearly, we're talking about melanated people. But again, through Egyptology, they want to tell you that this never happened, that these people are actually some type of European or Asiatic type folks. But they never would tell you, that these are true Africans people. That makes sense?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Let me go to this next fact, which is really brings us to number 3, which is we must connect Kemet or Egypt with Mother Africa or Alkebulan, right? The true name of Africa, one of the names is Alkebulan, 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 which is the Mother Africa that actually gave birth to Egypt. Now, there's a great book that I read from Chancellor Williams called The Destruction of Black Civilization. And he's got an entire chapter on this subject called Egypt, Ethiopia's oldest daughter.
Mm.
That's a concept that when you study Egypt, you must have that concept to understand true Egyptian history or Kemetic history. You must understand that Egypt comes from the inner workings of Africa. The deepest, darkest, blackest part of Africa is where Egypt starts from and then flows down, and knowledge flows to the Mediterranean. But it started with the heart of Africa. Again, they want to try to make it or portray it that Egyptian history starts from Europe or Asia and comes into Africa. That's just not the truth. That's the furthest from the truth. And we've got to do a better job with connecting that. Right. Some of the books I'll show you, a couple of books that I refer to as a Nile Valley Contribution to Civilization with Tony Browder, where he really talks about this in great detail. Hold on, this book right here. Please get this book. This book is so deep. Jane, I don't know if you know who Jane Elliott is?
I've heard of it. Yeah,
We
I've heard
talked
of it.
about Jane Elliott. She does this back in the 70s. She did this experiment called
Yeah, I love her. I
Lines.
love her. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Yep.
This is a book
Yep.
that she heavily, heavily promotes as well, because again, it talks about the whole Nile Valley civilization of Egypt prior to any European interference, right?
Mm.
And so this is a good fact, that a book place to start off with, and really you can go ahead and learn all of this stuff. So again, I tell people, don't believe what I'm saying just because I'm saying it. Go back and look it up. Okay.
Research.
But we got to reconnect Africa, or, Akibulan and Egypt back together, because they want to make it or portray it like it is something that's totally separate. And it's been that way my whole life, man. That just drives me crazy. Right.
Grind your
Which,
gears.
yeah. Talk to me about that. It's nuts, man. This thing brings me to number 4, which is the fact that currently Egypt is taught from a Eurocentric point of view. And what I mean by that is even the names that we refer to, the names that we're going to talk about today, they're European names, right? But the ancient Egyptians did not call their land Egypt, right? Egypt comes from a Greek term, right?
Documents in, decisions out. Go to doculingo.com/trap talks 2040 to get your 14-day free trial. And don't forget to sign up for our Patreon page. We out.
When the Greeks came over, they found one little city in the Mediterranean area of of Egypt. And they thought that was the entire Egyptian country.
Mm.
And so they just named everything Egypt, which again, that is incorrect.
Gotcha.
It was never Egypt. They called it country Kemet, Sais. We had other different names, but it was never Egypt. But all the terms that we use are European terms. Egypt,
Yeah.
the Sphinx. The Sphinx thing, they call it a Sphinx because of the strangler, right? That's what a Sphinx is. So when the Greeks came over, right, and later on with what Napoleon and all them, right, the Sphinx is buried up to its neck, and so they named it the Sphinx, which is the strangler. I had a little piece of paper here. I don't know what I did with it, but the actual name, I had the actual name of the Sphinx, which is, I can't remember, but it means Haru horizon, which means the sun horizon in the form of Haru, which one of the three Greek main gods, right? When we know him as Osiris.
I think it's it said the early Egyptians called it living image. It was Shisep Ak. I think that's how you
Mhm.
pronounce it. And
That was one, yep.
then the other name was Hor Aki. Basically means Horus of the horizon. I think
Right.
I'm butchering the names, but yeah, yeah.
I'm looking for my little, here we go. Here we go. So some of and then like the Great Sphinx is yeah, Akhit, which literally means Haru of the horizon. So
Mhm.
Asur is Osiris,
Yeah, I've heard
Set
also.
is Isis, and Haru is Horus. So the man, woman, and child. You first get those concepts in Egypt. This is prior to any type of European inflection or anything like that. They call one of the main cities there Thebes, but it was never called Thebes. It was called Waset. The large, like you see in Washington, you have an obelisk, right? Which is a long statue kind of with a pointy at the top. Egyptians never used the word obelisk. They called it, I can't pronounce it, Tekhene, Tekhenw, right? But all the terms, all the perspective, everything that we know that we study about Egyptian history is all through a European lens. I guess that's my main point that I got to understand. You got to understand that when you're reading this and when you're looking at some of these old books and some of these, especially some of these old white supremacists, that again, their main goal is just to take the blackness out of Egypt and replace it, tell you that it was either somebody European or Asian. They're going to downgrade anything that
Right.
comes in, the positivity of the true history of Egyptians.
And
That's what we got to do our work.
to add to your point, John Francis Champollion, he's the person who quote unquote created Egyptology.
There you
And if
go.
you look at colonization, right, North Africa was basically ran by the French. There's a rapper that comes from, he was Moroccan born. He ended up moving to New York. His name is French Montana, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so it just, you think about that, it's all, it's created by the French, Egyptology. So, you
Yeah.
gotta, like you said, you have an outsider who created that. Yeah.
Yep.
So
I mean, it's like what is it? The old African proverb that says what is it? The hunt will always be told from the perspective. I'm butchering it. It's something about the hunt is always perspective from the hunter's viewpoint until
yeah.
the lion actually gets the gun or something like that. Right.
Mhm.
The perspective of the hunt is never told from the perspective of the lion. Right. It's always told from the perspective of the hunter. Right.
Mhm.
When you want to go and learn the true history, you gotta look at it from a lion's perspective.
Right.
Hey, I'm here, got my family, trying to live, trying to survive, and somebody come to try to shoot us,
Yeah.
they trying to scout me. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
That's the same way that we got to look at
And
true
the thing about the
history.
Sphinx that what a lot of people don't know, well, maybe people know, but it was purposely buried under that sand, but they haven't figured out exactly why. It was perfectly
Yeah, I don't know
in
if
the sand.
purposely or time or because it's so old. Right, the
Mhm.
Sphinx is one of the oldest man-made structures on the planet.
Yeah.
It's so old. People and there's a lot of controversy on how old it is. Many people say that it's actually older than the Great Pyramids of Giza.
Heard
Which
that.
yeah, because when you look at it, there's times where you can look at part of the Sphinx body where it looks like there was rainfall and that it was eroded through water, which means that was a time when that part of the Mediterranean was lush and green and what
Right.
have you. That's thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago when
Right.
when that was created, when that happened. And we still don't know exactly how they did everything.
Yeah, and
We
they
don't
were
know how
saying
they
they think
built
it's
the
been
pyramids or
modified. They were saying that they think it's been modified too. And the Sphinx is positioned where it is actually correlates with the
the stars.
constellation. So they did a rewind. Some scientists did a rewind, and it actually well, pretty much all the pyramids and a lot of the major stuff in Egypt align with the solar system.
They absolutely, they
Yeah.
absolutely do. They're lined up and they're so precise,
Mhm.
especially the Great Pyramids of Giza, right? Which people got to understand these are not the earliest pyramids that were built. They were the last pyramids.
Mhm. Most of the pyramids are in existence are in Sudan.
Absolutely.
So
Right, which is in
brings me
Upper
to
Egypt.
point. Yeah.
There's more pyramids in the Sudan, right? The region that was called Nubia or Kush than there are in what is now called modern day Egypt. It's just the Egyptian ones are larger. They've been perfected, right? The angles on them, everything has been perfected over time, and they just got very, very expensive.
Accumulated knowledge.
Yeah, and now we still don't know how they did. I mean, that again, and that people please realize, and that is your African heritage. When you connect Egypt with Africa, then you also then claim that that's also part of our heritage. So when they try to tell you that you came from, again, a people, and I harp on this because I was told this as a child so much, right? Not by everybody, but too many times by teachers, clergymen, whatever, that you come from a people who had no education, that had no technology, that had no history. And your history starts with slavery, is what is perpetuated, is what I was taught, right? You can go online and you will have these arguments with people right now to this day. Keyboard warriors are trying to tell you that you're nothing but a bunch of monkeys that had no history. But they don't know true history, right? They just don't know. It drives me, it gives me high blood pressure. I don't need it, but because I know my facts. But then when you argue with some ignorant who get all the history from Hollywood, right? It's
Now, you know, when we clip this up, I'm gonna have to block some comments.
You got that? Right. And that's the other thing. Yeah. Come at me. Right. Any of those folks, I'd love to talk to them. Anyone who tried to tell me that I am trying to rewrite history, that I am trying to be a black supremacist, or any of this other garbage, come at me.
That
Let's
doesn't
have an intelligent conversation, because I come with facts.
Yeah.
I don't come with hearsay, hyperbole. I come with facts that can be documented. And the great thing about living in 2000 is that everybody's got Google. You can, all the information is there. You just got to go look it up. Quit regurgitating.
Look, we got AI now, so you ain't
We
even
got
gotta do the
AI,
work. You just write a prompt.
right? Absolutely.
Type in there, is what the Black Moor said true about Egyptology?
Right?
Transcribe the video, upload that.
Exactly. Upload and find out what if I'm
Right.
talking truth or not.
Right. Sips water.
Right. Now, that brings me another part, because you were talking about where this all starts, right? So again, now when you're studying Egyptian history, here's the other thing. You must understand this. Again, the true historians know this, and they write about this, not even in debate. This is not even in debate. The only people that debate this next fact are just the ignorant people who really don't know, who just go by what, Hollywood has told you in the past, right? So, number 5, Egyptian history and knowledge flowed in the same direction as the Nile for thousands of years before any European interference or interpretation. The knowledge and culture came from the highlands in the heart of Africa and flowed to the south. It flowed into the lowlands and emptied into the Mediterranean Sea. Now, let me show you some visuals on what I'm talking about with this here. Because this is the way, let's go here. Wait, let's go here. Most people, when they talk about Egypt, right, when you look at Egypt or a map of Egypt, right, this is the Mediterranean. This is too hard for you to probably see on this little thing, but you've got Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. This is the way it's normally taught. And it looks like, it's going to flow from the Mediterranean Sea at the top, right? And it flows down to the bottom of the page. All right, let me show you another picture like this, right? And so people will think that river, that long river down in the middle, is flowing from north to south. But that is not so. That is not what's happening. What's actually happening is the river is flowing from the bottom of this page to the top of this page, right? So and the highlands are in the heart of Africa. So a better way to look at this is through this perspective. If you see on the right, it's like a picture of Africa upside down, because what it shows is at the top of the page, it shows where the Nile starts to form in the Great Lakes region and flows downward, right here to the Mediterranean Sea. So this is the way it actually flows, right? This is the way the culture was built. Egypt was actually built out of the silt and the buildup of that river being flowed and pushing down to the Mediterranean Sea. That's a concept that you've got to understand. Most people don't know that and don't recognize that. But that's why we say that Africa gave birth to Egypt. Literally gave birth to Egypt, and it flows to the northern area from the highlands, right? And then you have Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. Most people don't know that. There was times when you had, and we'll talk about that later on, but even sometimes when you did have later on at the very, very end of the population, what have you, when you had some invaders or you had some Europeans, what have you, they didn't necessarily control all of Egypt. A lot of times it was just lower Egypt, but they couldn't touch upper Egypt, which was the higher, blacker, and then their cousins, which here's again, when we talk about reconnecting Africa to Egypt or Egypt to Africa or Kemet to, we must think of it as a family perspective, a family business, right? Because they'll show you some pictures where ancient Egyptians at certain times did enslave Africans, right? But they weren't chattel slavery like you think of in modern day slavery, but they were more prisoners of war, which
POW.
was common around the world at that time. And it was more so of a family business. Have you ever got an argument with your cousins? You ever had some cousins that you don't like, or you might even have to fight some of your cousins?
Cut some of them off.
It's the same process, the same type of
Still love you,
concept.
cuz, but I had to cut you off.
So at different
Yeah.
times, it was the same thing with Egypt, but you got to look at it that part, that perspective, that it's
Yeah.
a family perspective, right? People want to mention sometimes, well, they want to make you think that every Egyptian had to be jet black like my T-shirt. That ain't so. Black people don't come in every color like that, just black. We come in all shades of colors, from blue black to Casper white, right? All of that is every race comes out of every classification in genes is
blue
held
black.
in Africa. So you got to come back to Africa to get everything anyways. So it makes sense that it'd be everywhere. You know what I mean?
And there's two things I want to point out too.
Yeah,
I mentioned earlier about the Egyptians were really good at they were like the first astronomers. And part of the reason why they did that is that they wanted to track the cycles of Earth because the Nile periodically would flood, and so they wanted to raise their crops, figure out when to raise their crops. So to make it more to modern day, just think about the Farmer's Almanac, right?
Yes.
And then you look at the Farmer's Almanac. I'm really big in the stock market. You have the stock almanac as well. So it's like when you look at the progression of these things, like everyone is tracking or who's high knowledge of astronomy and the stars, they understand the importance of how it impacts Earth. The second thing I wanted to point out, you showed a picture of the upper Kemet and lower Kemet. The Kushites, I think at one time the Romans were trying to take over Egypt, but then they went down to, I guess you got to reverse the map again because I guess it was the lower Kemet and the Kushites spearmen. They were known, they were widely feared, right? So when they would go into battle, they would shoot their spears and they would aim for the eyes. And so they struck a lot of terror in people. But I think it was the Romans that came in and said, they wanted to take over, and they brought them gold spears as a peace offering. Like, hey, we don't want to fight you, but you know what it is. So we're going to give you these gold spears as a olive branch. And then they ended up, it sounded like it was extortion. So the Romans ended up basically giving them tribute, and they were basically contained to low, I guess you on the previous picture, lower, their rule was limited to lower Kemet. They didn't
To
go
lower
down to
Kemet,
upper,
lower,
they didn't go
yes,
to upper Kemet. The
right.
Kushites did make inroads into pushing different people outside of Egypt and reclaiming it at periods of time. So I think that's also important to know because when we talk about Roman history, you don't even hear about how much they feared the Kushite spearmen, right?
Right. And listen, and the Kushites knew that they had to fear them because, the Romans knew that they had to fear the Kushites, right? Because in history, you'll look at when the Romans came in, and it was after the Kushite or Nubian, the 25th dynasty. That dynasty, even again, your European historians do not even argue this point that these were some of the pure black, jet black Nubians that came out of the 25th and 26th dynasty that recaptured and unified Egypt, right? And you'll see this. We'll talk about this a little bit of time, and I was going to get to it, but you'll see this repeatedly in Egyptian history when you have foreign invaders that come in. They come in and take over. They're called like the intermediate periods. Anytime when you look at the history of Egypt, and they have what is called the pharaonic system, there's 30 to 33 dynasties. When you see that the dynasties are breaking up and there's a period of intermediate, that means that a foreign somebody came in, or there was just internal oil where there was a lot of fighting and what have you. Nothing ever positive came out of these intermediate periods. These are the periods where you'll see when the Hyksos come in, when the Asians come in, when they come in, these are also the times, the periods when modern day historians try to tell you that these people ruled all of Egypt at all times. No, they ruled a lot of times lower Egypt, where you can see the line there. Upper Egypt was a different subject, and then all the way up the Nile Valley. This is all where you're talking about Nubian and Cushites, right? And they were known for like you said about the bow and arrows, right? They were known for this back and forth throughout that history. But you got to know the perspective, right? You got to know, because they don't want you to know about it. I'm rambling. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, just lost my train of thought. Let me get this picture out here because I got to show you one other thing. Let me flip this back. I want to talk about, so when they try to give you the perspective, right? That again, Egypt was either started by Europeans or Asiatic folks, right? But they don't want to tell you that it was African people, an African family thing. I'm just asking you, do you know when the first non-African people ever ruled Egypt is? You have any idea?
I believe the first one was, I guess, right before or right after, where Alexander the Great. Was he one of the first, or was there
He
somebody?
was at the end.
He
Good.
was
That
at
was a
the
good
end.
thing though. He was at the end. I'm gonna talk about that because
Yeah.
Alexander the Great is where you get Cleopatra from.
Right.
From that
Yeah.
lineage. We'll talk about it in two couple of seconds. The first were the Hyksos. Now the Hyksos
Okay.
came
Okay.
into Egypt around from 1783 to 1550 BCE.
And they were African of African descent.
No. These was like Asian, European, not European,
Okay.
Asiatic. They were Asiatic from so-called Middle East people that came over. But here's the thing. They didn't even come over. Egypt had already had 12 dynasties, 12 dynasties. And some of these dynasties are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years old. So by the time, again, the Hyksos even came, now Europe is nowhere to be, Europe ain't even in, they're not even in the conversation. There's no great European intellect. There's no Greek philosophy at this point. This is prior to that. The Hyksos come in for the 13th through the 17th dynasties, and they just wreak havoc. They didn't bring any culture, any intellect. All they did is basically want to rip, just like you see people now coming into Africa that want to rip Africa off of natural resources and the people and the content, what have you. Same thing with the Hyksos. Now, when you make a biblical connection, the time of the Hyksos, you know, the time of the Hyksos is with the Bible is. This is when you're gonna see that David enters Egypt. Right? I had to make this connection. I didn't know about this until I was older. Right? I've heard about all these terms when I was in Sunday school, but this is why David and his family was allowed to come into Egypt, is because the influx of these Hyksos that were coming in and controlling Egypt. So he came in at the same time. But eventually, what you're going to have is, again, every time you see these foreign invaders or the intermediate period, you'll see eventually a rise where Black people say, we've had enough. And they're going to rise up and they're going to unite and they're going to come down. They're going to kick these people out. And you see this repeatedly throughout Egyptian history. But the thing that you got to understand is, even at this point, these aren't Europeans. These were Asiatic folks. Europe is still basically asleep. There's no high intellect, right? The first really high intellect writings that you have in come out of Greece is with Homer, with the Iliad, right? The Trojan War, right? They're about to make a whole movie about that. About to come out right now, pretty soon, a movie about that. But that's where you see Greek philosophy, Greek high
Right.
intellect and writings and stuff.
And isn't it? It's a little off subject, but I think on subject. Wasn't it Homer who wrote that his grandfather told him that there was like a Egyptian priest or somebody that told him about Atlantis? Is that the same person?
I don't know. It might have been though.
Yeah.
That one I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But I know that that time they were all trying to learn and study from Egypt. They all went to Egypt to study, to learn, to get educated. Hell, when we talk about all this is from a European perspective, right now you have in school, you're gonna have kids study in Trig. I think it's Trig. When they start studying the Pythagoras, what is the Pythagorean
Pythagorean theorem. Yeah.
theorem? Yeah. That's an
That's the
ancient
pyramid.
Egyptian concept and theory that is written on the walls over 5,000 years ago.
Yep.
Thousands of years before Pythagoras. He went over, studied, learned, and just stuck his name on it. Just like Trump will stick a name on his building, same thing happened, right?
Yeah.
And then Greek philosophy, they want to give him the acknowledge from that. But no, the writings were already there. That we could prove it. It's there. It's on the wall. So, again, which leads us to number 8, which is, again, after every intermittent period, you have this Black unification and these people coming down and unifying Let me see if I had a picture of it too, because I'm going to show you some pictures of some of these great pharaohs as well in just a second here. Let me get these other last 2 points out, and then we can just go with wherever you want. Yeah. So after every intermittent period, again, you're going to have a period of great African unity. Again, to me, it's like black people coming together. Well, in my mind, the way I think about it is, do you remember, I think it's been 2 years ago now, I think it was in Charlotte, North Carolina, when this black brother was working on a dock.
No, that was in North Carolina. I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
I don't think it was in North Carolina.
And the white people tried to jump him, and he threw up his cat, and all these black people started to be. In my mind, that's what I think of each time Egypt comes back to unify. Some black person throw up the hat, and then we come back, kick out these invaders, and then unify both Upper and Lower Egypt at one time. And
So,
you'll
like,
see this repeated.
yeah, so like the kid that was swimming, and I don't think people realize how much in shape you got to be. Like, he was literally it looked like he was doing the breaststroke.
Yeah.
And the breaststroke is what you do. I figured this out later on because I love swimming. You do the breaststroke if you're in open sea or open lake and you're swimming against a wave. Like, you gotta So think of the 16-year-old kid. I hope somebody gave him a scholarship for that. But I think of like that's how the archers were of like Nubia, right? They were like snipers. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah. That even some painter put that on a shirt, or he made it went big on Instagram. He made
Oh, did it?
he did a mural of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And again, I don't condone violence, but that's a video that will live in my
I'm
mind.
glad no guns were used. They fought it out. You know.
Yeah.
Sadly, that woman caught a stray. Well, she caught a chair to the face.
She got a chair. Somebody got it. Okay, that was probably that's probably the only overstep. You ain't need to hit that.
Yeah, he had to do that, but he saw Rick.
he raged out. He just raged out. Okay. Okay. Number 9. Now this brings me to topic concept number 9 that you just gotta understand when reading and learning about Egyptian history. Okay, number 9 is Alexander of Macedonia, right? Alexander the Great defeated the Persian army and conquered Kemet, Egypt, in 332 BCE. Right now, his general, he ended up dying, like in the Middle East after he conquered Egypt. Right, he went on to keep the battle going, and he died. So his general, who he left in charge of Egypt, became the first pharaoh. His general is Ptolemy, Ptolemy.
Heard of him.
He names himself Ptolemy the First. This is Cleopatra's lineage, right? Now here's the thing. Again, we're gonna talk some stuff. The controversy. It should be controversy, but it is because modern movie cinema wants you to think that Cleopatra looked like this, right? Like this woman. How come my thing is not working? Okay, right. Like this woman here, right? They want you to think that this is what Cleopatra looked. But again, that couldn't be further from the truth. Understand this. First off, that woman that we're talking about is the 7th Cleopatra in her family name that was in Egypt at the time. She's not the first, she's the 7th. Second thing that we must understand when we look at the Ptolemy and their rule, just as today, right? Men don't bring their wives to battle. Men were bringing their wives to battle. So these white men were coming over here in Africa, but they were having sex with black women. So Cleopatra was a mixed race individual. She was not pure European. She wasn't pure white. She didn't even come from Europe. She wasn't born in Europe and traveled to Africa. She was born in Africa. Her mother was, right? And some say her mother might have been African, Asiatic, but okay, melanated. Let's just say that. Mother was melanated. Had Cleopatra lived in the antebellum South or Jim Crow eras, she would still be just like the rest of us black people, having the same treatment. Because again, blackness comes from blue black to Casper white, right? She's a mixed race person. Here's the other thing that they know, and again, it's in the history books, but they don't portray this. Did you know that Cleopatra the 7th herself considered herself an Egyptian African woman? Like her whole fight was to save Egypt as an autonomous nation, not to be conquered by Greece, Rome, or be Europeanized. She wanted to keep it as a distinct African nation. She spoke several languages, including African dialects, and again referred to herself as an Egyptian African woman. but you're not going to see that in modern Hollywood pictures. You know, they'll probably get what's that actress name? Sweeney. They had to put it with the jeans and what that girl's name is. Something sweet. You know, they're gonna probably put somebody like that. And then that's but that couldn't be further from the truth. And what I'm saying, all this you can look at, all this you can look up. They just don't want you to know about it, right? Because again, they used to call Cleopatra the most beautiful woman in the world. They can't do that and then downplay our black women. Tell you black women it is that, and that, and that, but then admit that what they consider the most beautiful woman in the world was a black woman. They just can't do it. Last quick thing is, and again, this is gonna be good. I don't care. Come at me. This is facts here. Last thing, the Arab/Islamic invasion of Africa started around 632 CE. They have nothing. Let me repeat. They have nothing to do with the ancient bloodline of the ancient African Egyptian people. Nothing. They there now, right? But that is the same, the way they're there now, they dominate and they try to say, oh, we are the Egyptians. BS. That's the same way if you take a white American and he says, I'm a true American and wants to portray that his lineage is Native Americans in this country. No, your lineage is not, talk shop. Your native history is not the same as the true Americans, true indigenous American people of this land. You may control the land now, you're here now, but you weren't the ones who created or started this land.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Arab Islamic swoop or takeover of Northern Africa and Egypt. Those people, again, have nothing to do. They are not the bloodline of the ancient Egyptians. I'll leave it there. Come at me with it. But you can look all these up. These are just 10 basic facts that you need to know. Any questions so far with that so far? And then we're going to get into some of these pictures real quick.
No, but I got some other questions that I know I would like to get your thoughts on. So would you say the 10 Christian commandments, would you say they're based on the Ma'at laws?
1,000%. 1,000% they are based off the native confessions of Ma'at, M-A-A-T or A''A''T, Ma'at. She had 32 native confessions, right? And native confessions is, I did not do this. I have never done this. I have never done this. In order to get into heaven and to get into, the next realm, they did something what is called, they weighed your righteousness, I guess you would call it, your righteousness. And you'll see, again, this is thousands and thousands of years ago. This is before any type of European culture or Greek philosophy. You'll see on the walls, right, where they're weighing your heart against a feather. It's an ostrich feather, right? And if you're telling any lies or what have you, you don't make it in. But there's 32 of these that are like, I have never stolen. I have never killed. I have never done this. I've never done that. And then with modern day Christianity or what have you, they took 10 of those and then want to tell you that those were the 10 commandments, which, listen, we should do a whole talk on that as well. Just Moses himself. Because again, Moses studied in Egypt. Moses was a black man, folks. He was a melanated man, right? How are you going to be a white man in Egypt? They don't want you to know who you are. Same thing with Jesus. Jesus went hidden in Egypt. Why wasn't he found out? If he was supposed to be the only white man in Egypt or a white man in Africa, people would have found you. They would have known. The problem is you look like the indigenous people who lived in that land at the time. That's why they didn't know.
Yeah.
Moses studied in the tombs for like 30 years from the high priest. And then all of a sudden he came out with these 10 commandments, right? We talked about in the other video before that Moses knew that there was a man already that gave the world monotheism, right? The belief in one God, because he lived 1,000 years before Moses was born. And his name was Akhenaten, right? Later on, you know his family line, Akhenaten's family line, because you know his, wasn't necessarily his son, but like a stepson of his that became the boy king, King Tut. That's his lineage, right? King Tut had to come back, and they say that he went back and brought back the old gods and stuff like that. Why did he have to bring him back? Because his father, Akhenaten, had said, we're going to do away with all the old gods, and we're going to have just the one God, the sun god. And again, go look it up. Don't believe me. It is documented. This is thousands and thousands of years of history, right? And when you look at the pictures of King Tut, they paint him brown, melanated. Again, this is his grandmother, right? Look at his grandmother, right? They could have used any colors that they wanted to portray these folks at the time, but they chose these colors. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, man.
No, you good. I didn't even have this question down, but I just thought about it. You were talking about Ma'at, and she would weigh your your heart on one side and
Yep.
then ostrich feather.
Yep.
Did that inspire the scale of justice?
Yep.
That image? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is the kind of stuff when you open your eyes to this, you start looking around like, oh, wait a minute. What are the scale of just that looks very much like something was
Mhm.
5,000 years ago. Where because they stole that.
The prescription sign that
The
came from
prescription sign,
that
all of
came
right? All of that is ancient Kemetic symbols, right? You talk about the prescription, we're bringing it again back to medicine, right? I think they just now changed this, but every doctor had to take the Hippocratic oath, right? Hippocratic oath, right? They had to take this Hippocratic oath to become a doctor, right? This oath that says, I will do no wrong. I'm there to help the people, blah, 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 right? Hippocrates was a Greek guy. But where did he study? Where did he study himself? Who was his inspiration? Who was his leader, his
the
teacher?
first Greek gods were African gods, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So again, that's what points me out that even Hippocrates, he says it was Imhotep who he's talking about. But the Greek word for Imhotep, so even when you take the Hippocratic oath, it says Imhotep's name, but the Greek name is, as I can't pronounce it or spell it, but it's like Esasilapolis, something like that. But who they're talking about is Imhotep.
Yeah.
That's who they're talking about. And they
Yeah.
know this, but they
Yeah.
flip it around now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you look at the back of your dollar, you see all these African, Egyptian symbols. Where'd they get that from?
Yeah, we should do a episode on that, breaking down the dollar.
The United States seal.
Yeah.
Look at the United States seal, right? With the eagle, with the wings and all that. Man, that is a copy of an ancient Kemetic symbol that is thousands of years old. That is there in Africa before Europe ever. And that's just a fact. You can't
Mhm.
deny that. You can say it didn't happen, but go look it up.
Right.
What else you got?
All right. So when you look at the outsiders who came in and took over Lower Kemet at different times or Egypt,
Mhm.
which one out of the multitude of them do you think did the most damage? So you got the Syrians, you got the Greeks, you got the Romans, Persians, Asiatic people, and the Liberians. So I think it's Liberian that were their name. So which, I guess, out of those groups do you think did the most harm to Egypt?
I guess that's gonna be somebody's opinion,
Mm.
but for me, I'm gonna have to say the last because that's the one that we never recovered from.
Mm.
Right? That's the one that we never got back. And to this day, we don't control Egypt. To this day.
So you mean the Romans?
Well, later than the Romans, because don't forget the Persians had it. Then I think the Persians came back at one time. The last was let me look at. I got a little book right in my handy guidance book here. But the last one obviously is going to be the Islamic slave trade, the period. Yeah, so you have like the Persians came in a second time. Then the Greeks beat the Persians around 332, Alexander the Great and what have you. But after the Greeks, then you have the Romans. After the Romans, you have the Byzantine period. And
Okay.
then after the
Is
Byzantine
that
period,
Constantine?
yeah,
Okay.
Constantine. Yes,
Yeah.
because first Christian emperor of Rome, right? And then listen, this is crazy because if you look at the history of Constantine, this is where you have all these secret meetings where they definitely try to take black people out the Bible.
Yeah.
Right? Again,
Yeah.
people don't know this, but go look it up. Don't believe it because I'm saying it, but go look it up. Christianity was in Africa before it was in Europe.
And Islam.
In Africa before it was in Europe. Ever. Go look it up. So again, all you Europeans, all this Christianity, listen, that was in Africa before you ever knew anything or your people ever even knew anything about Christianity. And since we're just talking about it anyways, hey, clip this up. Clip this point. Let me just let you know. The only white people in the Bible are those Roman soldiers that crucified Jesus Christ. Let me say that again for the people in the back who didn't hear it. When you read your Bible, good Christians, and I'm a Christian, right? When you read your Bible, please understand that everybody you're reading about, none of them folks are white people, European people, except for the Roman soldiers that crucified Jesus. That's a fact.
Mhm.
So again, who I think did most damage, I'm gonna go with the last, which is I'm gonna go with the Islamic period. They weren't really even a dynasty period. Let me say that to you. Again, when you think of concepts, when you think of the concept of Egyptian history, same thing I told you, look at one side of the room, look at the other side of the room, look at the distance, and if you had a linear line, a little small part of it at the end is going to be when Europeans came in. Again, they didn't come in until around the 30th dynasty. So again, let's just understand what that means. If they've had 30 prior dynasties between any European come in and conquered anything, and some of these dynasties are hundreds of years old, right? The New Kingdom was over 500 years old. Over 500 years old. That was like in the 18th and 19th dynasties, right? Europeans don't even come till you're looking like the 30th dynasty. Again, when you look at the concept of that, we just celebrated America's 250th anniversary. So think about everything that's gone through in American history. Now double that, and that's one Egyptian period. One Egyptian period, and had nothing to do with Europeans.
Yeah.
Like you don't break it down, but you got to conceptualize.
Right.
That's why I said before you really jump, you got to conceptualize, look at this stuff, right? Anytime you talk about when these Europeans, it came at the end of the Egyptian height, right? They've already risen and fallen 3 different times before they even come in, before Europeans even come in the picture.
Yeah.
But you'll never see that in Hollywood.
And Egypt was the longest standing, I don't know if kingdom's the right word, but I guess civilization. Like it was longer than the Mongol rule, the Ottoman rule.
It was one of the longest, but I wouldn't say the longest, because one, who was longer than that? When you look at the Kushite, the Kush, or I'm trying to think, Nubian dynasty. It's like from Ethiopia, ancient Axiom, right? When you look at these nations, Rome never could conquer Ethiopia. They stopped. They tried to come up the Nile Valley, right? When we go back to that picture, where they go, they tried to come up this Nile Valley to the top of this picture, but the deeper you go up that Nile Valley, the blacker you get, right? So the deeper you go, the blacker you get, and the Romans could never conquer.
Ethiopia was never colonized either.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. And before it was even called, again, Ethiopia is a European name, right? The black people that we're talking about never refer to their land as Ethiopia. These are all, we're using European terms, European now. So even when you study this, you're studying it from a European perspective, not an African perspective, right? Even as much as I want to just deal with just the African perspective, I don't even know all the names. So you see me flip-flopping back and forth between Egypt and Kemet.
Yeah,
right? Kemet is a true name. Egypt is a creation of Europeans.
Yeah. And so most of what we're talking about too is lower Kemet.
Exactly.
Right.
And most of what they get is lower Kemet, not both. And so again, when you hear that they say that they unified, right? There's times with great pharaohs who came in and unified Egypt, which I've got some of these pictures of these pharaohs. I'm going to show you guys this as well. But when you look at like Ahmosis the First, Amenhotep the Second, these, when you look at even the biblical, what's his name in the Bible, when you read in the Bible, the 25th Nubian Kushite dynasty that I was talking about is mentioned in the Bible, right? And I think the pharaoh's name that in the Bible, I believe they call him Pharaoh Tar, Tar, I think. I can't remember, but because it's not his real name, it's the European name that they use in the Bible for these Egyptian pharaohs that came out in the 25th dynasty. But again, you can look all that stuff up, man. It's all history, all of it. Let me look at these pharaohs right here, right? This guy right here, Narmer, the first one, first upper left, that's the first pharaoh who unified all of Egypt. Now, again, Egypt was there before. That's called the pre-dynastic period. But that first guy, upper left, he was the first guy to come in and unify both upper and lower Egypt. We call him Narmer, but the European name, they'll call him Menes or Menes, right? Zoser, that next one to the right of him, that's one of the first pharaohs of the third dynasty, right? He, one of the Egyptian builders. He's the one who hired Imhotep, right? Yeah, right there in the middle. Look at that, brother. The second row, second to the right. Menenhotep the second. Boy, that boy looked like Idi Amin. Right now, he looked like a pure African. But again, these are some of the pharaohs that, again, now Hollywood take their names. Look, Ramses II, right? Hollywood take their names and angularize these people. Here's Akhenaten. That's the one I told you that King Tut came from his lineage. Look at them lips. He got Asiatic-looking eyes. Yeah. But look at his lips, nose, right? Look at this one. Look at the Ramses the First, Amenhotep the First. These are some of the pharaohs that came in and again kicked out foreign invaders and unified Egypt. Osiris, again, that's the Greek name. So all the way down the last one, third row to the bottom right, it says Osiris, right? That's Assur. right? But the Greeks know him. This is one of the ancient Egyptian pharaohs and really gods of Egypt. Let me click this up. And I want to hit you guys with these 4 books real quick. First one is The Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. This is a must-have. Just Black history. Corey, I highly suggest order this book, man. Order
Okay.
it might make you angry, but order this book. He breaks down exactly. If you want to know how did Egypt go from black to brown to white, he breaks it down. Again, this book is a must-have. Love this book. Next book is this book here, Black Man of the Nile and His Family. Again, it talks a little bit about here. Everything you're gonna need to know. This is by Dr. Yosef A. bin Yakin. Next book, The African Origin of Civilization, Myth or Reality. This is by Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop. Let me tell you how bad
It's pronounced Jacques. One of my friends is Senegalese. It's pronounced Jacques.
Jacques. Okay, Jacques.
Jacques.
And he is Sudanese. He's Sudanese. Yeah. This brother was so bad.
Senegalese.
Multiple doctors. Have you ever heard of this guy right here?
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you what made this brother so bad and what put him on the map. And I highly advise everybody to go pick up this book. He actually went into the tombs and took pieces of the skin off the ancient mummies and did his melanin dosage test to see if there was any melanin or how much melanin was in these pharaohs. Because again, we've always been told, no, the pharaohs were either white or Asiatic. But he has proved beyond a doubt that these pharaohs were melanated people. Now, you only get melanin, starts off in Africa, because that's where now we know human existence started in Africa and then went out from there. Same story with Egypt.
And he also, shout out to my good friend Fude Jop, who's from Senegal, and he actually told me this. He said that he theorized that the reason why Africans or black people have rhythm is because we have melanin in our skin. It's like, wow.
I believe it. I believe it. Right?
Getting rhythm from the sun. Yeah.
I'm telling you, man. I read this book. I was in high school the first time I read this book. Again, this is one of my old books that I got from my parents, and they autographed and everything for me as well. But it's like in the 80s when I read this book.
Yeah, they tried to suppress what he did.
Absolutely, they still try to suppress what he did.
Yeah.
But again, we all know, and we know today that melanin comes from people of color, right? Let me just say this. If for anybody who doubts this, and this is the way I'm sorry, it's just the way DNA works, right? Because the melanin, the brown skin, that's a dominant trait. Okay? Let me tell you, folks, you can't take 2 lily white people and produce a black person. Let me repeat that. You can't take 2 lily white people and produce a black person. You can't take 2 of them recessive genes and make a dominant gene. You can't do it. Now, what you can do is take, and this is what's happened throughout mankind, you can take 2 black people and create lighter skinned people, create white, right? As you move out of Africa and away from the equator, and as you also go to more different environments and colder environments and this and that, you get less sun as well, your body will adapt and what have you, and it can change as well. All of these are factors, but it goes from Africa outward. It can't come the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Never has, never will. If so, prove it. Show me the bones, show me the DNA, show me any of that, because we definitely can show you the other way. In modern day history, we know that you can take somebody black and just get with somebody who's lighter skinned or somebody who's white and produce a lighter skinned baby.
Yeah.
We already know that, right?
Yeah, they found Cheddar Man in England, I think it was.
Yes. Yeah. Look at that.
I don't know why they call him Cheddar. I don't know why they call him Cheddar Man.
But look, same thing when you go to look at the history of China.
Yeah, they're from. It's been theorized that they came from the Sands people, which is South Africa.
Right. They got the same type of eye.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it all started in Central Africa and then moved out.
Yeah, and
from
people left at different time periods and then came back around.
Yep. So, so you get all of that, and those who know, but those who still want to portray this white supremacist ideology will deny that. But when we're still fighting, but the technology and the information stuff is already there.
Right.
And even before, like I said, even before DNA, when it comes to Egyptians or what have you, believe what they believed, right? If they are painting these pictures of people and they have it on their walls with these different shades of brown and black, why do you only include the white? That came later on. Like I literally had an argument with somebody who showed me a picture of like a Greco-Roman, pharaoh at the time, what have you, and said, "This is what they all look like." I said, "Man, what you don't understand, this is Egypt was already old, downfall, corrupted. This is at the very last period. You're talking someone that came in the 30th dynasty. This is not the first, the second, the third, the pyramid builders, none of that. There was none of these white Europeans at that time. And he couldn't argue with, not with facts. The only thing the guy could tell me is, oh, you're just trying to rewrite history. No, I just study history.
You should have said, yeah, I'm rewriting it back from what y'all did.
Right? Right? You ever see this one right here, man? You ever see this complex? I gotta just share this with the people. This concept, man, this complex was built right out of this cliff. Let me tell you, this is the complex for a badass woman by the name of Hatshepsut. She was so badass, she actually became a pharaoh, ruled Egypt as a man, and on the statue, she even gives herself a false beard. I'm telling you, badass. This is the new kingdom. Again, this is after Egypt has been unified. This is after the 18th dynasty. This is the 19th dynasty. So this would even be after one of the intermittent periods and stuff like that. Thought I had another picture too. I was trying to show you guys. So that's just another carving. That's Imhotep right there. This is a picture of Imhotep as well. Again, the world's first multi-genius. Here's what I'm going to show you. This is what Egyptians, now this is a drawing, but this is how they classify. Came from the tomb of, I believe, Ramses II. But if you've noticed, right, you've got an Arab-looking guy, European-looking guy, and you got this Egyptian and this African guy. They're a Nubian, they say. But if you notice, the Nubian and the Kemet or Kemite guy look exactly the same, except for the guy on the left is a little lighter shade than the third guy.
Yeah.
But you look at their clothing, exactly the same,
Almost identical, yeah.
right? Very, very similar because we're talking about family business. That's why.
Yeah.
It wasn't foreign because it's family business like cousins. All right, go ahead.
And my last question is, why did the Egyptians, Kemites, value gold so much?
It's a great question, man. I just think it's a commodity that has been around for so long,
Mm-hmm.
and it was so abundant in Africa and Egypt and Nubia and Kush. But I don't know where the first usage of, when people really started liking gold, I don't know where that came from, but that's ancient. I mean, you were talking thousands and thousands of, even probably, I bet you people probably knew the rarity of gold, probably even prior to even Egypt, I would think.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, then especially, again, I want to keep beating a dead horses, but again, with the indigenous African people, right? The word itself, Nubia, they called it Nubia. The Egyptians called it Nubia. It comes from the word nub, which literally means gold. So Nubia in the highlands, right, where the Nubian, all of that was like the center place where they had tons of gold, right? It was known for gold, right? So that's why, again, they trading partners, family, cousin, what have you. And it was a precious commodity that was traded around the world at the time.
Right.
When exactly started at, but it's ancient.
Yeah. Cause that's
Ancient
like what
Egypt.
I see as like one of the lasting impacts is that gold is, I mean, it's always been an important precious mineral, right? So even to this day, like,
To this day.
to this day.
I mean, listen, and countries will murder you and kill you over that.
Over that, yep.
Right. There's been a lot of times where you got countries where they wanted to throw off the US dollar and say, we're not going to trade in the US dollar. We're going to trade back to the gold standard or in gold
Yeah.
off you. Right. My
Gaddafi.
I was just going to say that. My biggest problem with Obama, right? And if I ever get a chance to interview Obama or talk to him, and I probably wouldn't bring it to the public, but I want to know privately, brother to brother, black man to black man, family member to family member. What were you thinking to go in and assassinate, Muammar Gaddafi, who was trying to unify Africa under one dollar system, under one, I forgot, currency.
I actually don't think it was his call. I think it was, because the White House it's its own. It's ruled by the lobbyists. And when you think about the world order, right? They saw it as an act of war. Yeah, it was something else I was about to say. But yeah, I don't think. Like I said, I don't
think it was like he came up with the idea and it was in. I think it was in his head.
Yeah, I mean, they say that 5% of the decisions that come out of the White House are from the president. Everything else is predetermined. So I just think that it kicked off. Yeah, this is what I was about to say. His country. What was the name? Was it Algeria?
It's
Maybe, yeah. His country at the time had the most gold per capita than any country on earth. So, and when I say per capita, if you basically take the amount of gold they had and you divide it up across every household in that country,
Mhm.
each house on average had more gold than any other nuclear household than any other country on earth. That
Yep.
doesn't necessarily mean that the gold was evenly spread out between,
Right.
because he did have somewhat of a dictatorship, but
Yeah.
it had the most gold per capita, and now they're like, "Where did that gold go?"
Where'd it go?
Where'd it go?
You know what I mean? Where
Yeah,
where'd it go? It
yeah,
didn't stay. It didn't stay within family business. I'll tell you that.
right, right.
Uh, I mean, yeah. The other thing I was gonna say was the Gaddafi man. This guy, like, higher education was free in this country. Like,
Mhm.
they would send you to go get a college degree, and they'll send you somewhere in the government would pay for it. Free medical, free housing, right? He was doing all this stuff for the people. Now, again, I don't want to get into all of Gaddafi's political because I don't know everything about that,
Yeah,
but I do know that this man was a Pan Africanist,
yeah.
right? Meaning he wanted to unify all of Africa and
He didn't
all.
see himself as Arab,
Right.
as strictly Arab. He saw that as like a part of his identity,
Yep.
and he also had like a all female soldier team as well too.
His right hand guard, yes, badass women.
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah. Gaddafi was the man, man. Gaddafi
yeah,
was the man.
yeah. My grandma loved him.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I
That's
didn't
amazing.
learn that till my mom was. They was talking about Gaddafi. She was like, "Yeah, Mama love Gaddafi," and I was like, "For real?"
You
I
like
was
what?
like, "Okay,
Absolutely.
yeah."
Those are my 10 topics. Anything else you got? I appreciate
Nah,
you letting me ramble.
nah.
Oh, I didn't show you this. This man, this photo right here. This is the actual. They call it the Namar Patal, or like the plate or the armor of him, showing him what they call smiting or killing these foreign invaders and him unifying Egypt from Upper and Lower Egypt. I mean, this thing right here is like over 5,000 years old. When he did this, it was like 3,200 BC.
Mm,
Crazy, man. And they put all those in facts. They want you to know what they look like, right?
yeah, he had a
That's
fat
over
nose.
5,000 years old, that carving right there, man.
Yeah.
That is just crazy to me. Anyways.
This was what I was gonna say. You remember we talked about how if you look at the Catholic Church and the way the priests dress, that it was inspired by the Pharaoh's dress. Can you put
Yes,
that picture up?
absolutely.
Yeah, put that picture up.
Dude, I'm trying to see if I got, hold on one second. I'm trying to see if I have one. Again, you can look, all the stuff that you're talking about is in this book. And I'm trying to see if they've got a picture of one because they get all of that from Egypt. Flipping. I don't see it off the top of my head, but all that information, man, you got to check out this book because that's in there, right? You even see well, they just outlawed this in parts of Africa now, but you know how even in Africa they make the judges and the lawyers and all that stuff dress up in these wigs with this white. Have you ever seen that? The old, like, even in England,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
have this old
Yeah.
white wig with all that was inspired from Egypt.
Mm,
All of that, man, all that imagery, all of that was inspired. Hell, the Oscars right now, the when you give the Academy Award,
mhm.
that gold man, the statue, African. Go look it up. Inspired. I'm trying to flip through this book real quick and show you some of the pictures of that, but I don't know exactly what page it's on. But yeah, that Pope's hat that you're talking about, man, that's like the hope of like the unification hat of Upper and Lower Egypt. Again, come out of Africa because Christianity came out of Africa.
Mhm.
They want you to know that, though. Yeah, I can't find a picture, man, right now, but you're absolutely right. Yeah, I don't know. But
Yeah,
there's so much, man. There's so much if you look around just in your everyday life and just, things nowadays, you still see the influence of ancient Egyptian, Kemetic from thousands of years ago. But, you'll hardly ever hear them tell you that they were Black African. They
right.
will tell you that they're everything else. And if they can't figure out something, you know what they say then? When they can't figure out, when they know, okay, well, you're proving that it wasn't somebody in Europe, and you're
Oh,
proving that it wasn't somebody from Asia, when they have nothing else to go by, do you know where they just throw up their hands and say it came from? It must have came from aliens from outer space.
yeah.
And no black people weren't intelligent enough to know how to track the stars, so it must have been aliens. They got whole shows on the mysteries of ancient aliens who built. Get them out of here, man. It's all indigenous African people, and I'm
Right.
so glad that the scientist Neil deGrasse Tyson came out and said the same thing like last.
He said it on Shark
Yes, on Club Shay Shay.
Club Shay Shay.
Just said it like he's just as frustrated as I am. He
Right.
said, I'm so frustrated with this, right? And they can't think of anything else, right? It must have been aliens who built the pyramid.
Well, the late Edgar Casey, in one of his in one of his predictions, he said that the way the pyramids were built, he said that eventually we're going to find them. I think he put a year on it, but it's basically in the pyramid. They actually have how they did it, put the pyramids together. So
I've
yeah,
seen that
so
one yet. I'd love to see it, but I do
hopefully,
know designed the astrological stars and everything else. That's why you have some of the first calendars come out of that way before the Julian calendar and all that, before they messed it up. And I say messed it up, right? Because you literally had, why do you think, listen,
yeah,
these fools went
the
and changed the
Jogarian,
calendar and added their own names to it.
yeah,
That's why August is for Augustus, right? That's for Augustus. It wasn't called August in the map. You had Julian Caesar had to get his name in there, right? So now we had the month of June,
July, oh June,
right?
yeah,
July, right? You had October's for Octavius, right? I'm telling
yeah,
you, they had them divided up in the months, 30-day systems and what have you. And then
yeah.
they found out about you needed a leap year because the way that the earth moves and stuff like that. So you had to add, a fourth of a year every so
Well,
often to the
their
month.
math wasn't right because if you look at the Mayan calendar, it's actually a shorter year than ours, but it's I think they said it's like it's the way they broke it down. I saw it like Discovery Channel. They're like it's way more accurate than the Gregorian calendar, which is based around the sun, and the moon actually has more of an impact on our day to day than the actual sun. So we follow the Gregorian calendar, which isn't you shouldn't need a leap year like the Mayans didn't need a leap year.
Yeah.
I think they had 260 days in their year, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm,
We have 365 or 366 every 4 years.
yeah. It's like
Yeah,
365 and a fourth or whatever, because you got to make the adjustment and everything. Yeah. And
yeah.
the Egyptians, they went from the lunar calendar to the stellar calendar because they were able to track, I think it was called the dog star. I can't remember what the Europeans called, but there's a star that pops up like once a year. And they were able to see where that popped up, track it, and base that on, the rest of
You
the year.
you
And then
you
again, the cycles of the Nile. And like you're talking about when it induction season, when it overflows the banks, fertilizes the land, man, they calculated all that and had that down to a science so that they knew.
you talking about the Dogon people, I think it is. Um, 'Cause the modern day Dogon people, they track it's something that happens every 50 years or something like that, I believe.
Mm,
And they do a ceremony. And gosh, I can't think of the guy's name, but he said they pull that knowledge from the Egyptians. And I think it was some type of I think was it the French? It was some people who were trying to figure out how did they know that. And so every time they do this ceremony, this elaborate ceremony, the Dogon people, and then they have like a stat like a prop or something. And so every 50 years they put it in like this one special hut. And so they
oh,
took one of the
really?
people into the hut and then he looked and he seen about 15 or 20 of them.
Wow.
So like each object is every 50 years. So they walked him in there and he's like, oh my God, it's like 15 or 20 of them. So in his head, he's adding them up like, wow, they, been
Wow.
doing this. Yeah. So they knew about I forgot what star. It's some star or something like that. And it
Mm,
shows up every 50 years. They have a ceremony or whatever. Yeah. So
I believe it. Yeah.
they've been had this knowledge.
Had his knowledge,
And
man. Ancient knowledge.
I'm actually gonna put an image of the Dogon. They're called the Dogon people.
Dogon people. Okay.
Yeah, and every
Yeah.
50 years they do the same ceremony, and then they put a new object in there every 50 years.
Wow.
Mhm.
Drop it in the comments when you find it or something, man.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see what it looks like. Perfect, man. We're about to cut the solid
Sirius,
hour.
the Sirius star. Yeah, they track
The
Sirius
Sirius,
star.
yes, yeah,
Yeah,
Sirius star. I
Sirius
think.
B. Yeah,
Let's see if I have a picture of it. You're right. Now that just reminded me. That's what it's called. Yeah, I don't know where. I didn't have it loaded up in my
and
books.
they're claiming the aliens told them that
That
that's
just it just drives me nuts,
yeah.
man. These are the symbols you were talking about. The medical symbols. Can you see those?
Yep.
Like the medical symbols you were talking. This is all again. This is all from Tony Brower's book. Let me see. This another. This is the here what I was talking about too. Look at this is what I was talking about as far as the dollar, the ancient American symbol, the seal. You know what I mean? Compared to the ancient Kemetic seal.
Yeah.
All of that, man. It's so deep. It's so much deep history. But again, study it from the proper perspective, and know that when you're studying, you got to look at it from a family business perspective first. And then that went outwards to other people. At no time did Egypt or African people wait in darkness, waiting for European people or Asiatic people to come bring us the light of culture, intellect, knowledge, any of that. No, we already had all of that, knew all of that, and pushed that out to the rest of the world, and the rest of the world should be thankful.
I think that's a wrap.
I think it's a
Thank,
wrap, brother.
thank, thanks y'all for coming. This Corey Stay Trapping with Trap Talks, where we discuss the intersection of culture and tech. This is our, history segment in collaboration with the Black Moor, and I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, hey, man, it's been fun. We got to do it. Wait, I'm gonna try to hit the little. How do I hit my little? Let's see here. Yeah. Oh yeah. Urban intellectuals. We got all kind of discounts. You want to learn about all kind of stuff? Black history cards, books, videos. Go to Urban Intellectuals. I'll have a little link for you guys to click on to check on that, and then always make sure to subscribe, like, keeps the algorithm going. But again, my name is your brother, OJ Kenyatte Johnson, here for the Black Moor, where we want to motivate, educate, motivate, and uplift Black people worldwide and everyone who loves us, regardless of race, religion, or nationality. We will do this again, man. Let's set something up soon. We got some
Yeah,
more topics. We definitely gonna talk
yeah,
about Imhotep and some other things, but
yeah,
that's all I got for you.
yeah, yeah. And subscribe to Trap Talks. You can find us everywhere online: Patreon, YouTube, Trap Talks 2040 to get new content. So yeah, we out. Peace.
Yeah, y'all. Peace.